Welcome to the Maine Real Estate Roundtable podcast. I'm Bobbie Grenier, your trusted guide to navigating the world of real estate in Maine. Get ready to debunk mortgage myths, unravel real estate mysteries, and learn tips to avoid costly mistakes. Whether you're an industry pro, an overwhelmed buyer, confused seller, or simply curious about life in Maine, this is the podcast for you. You have found the Maine Real Estate Roundtable podcast with Bobbie Grenier, and I'm so happy that you're here today because today we're going back to school with Mortgage 101. Loan Officer Jillian Benson with LeaderOne Home Loans is here to talk to us today about where to start. She goes over the pre-qualification process, tips to get you through the application process, and more. So let's jump in. Welcome, Jillian, to the Roundtable. I'm happy that you had time to sit down with me today.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. So in doing this podcast, I have a lot of ideas, so it's really hard to keep up with them all. But one thing that was really important to me was to give some information and reference for home buyers, and specifically first-time home buyers. And that is something that I know you do a lot of, and you do a great job at it. So I'm happy that you agreed to talk with me today. So we've done a lot of deals together, and you've always impressed me with the support and the guidance that you give your buyers, and especially your first-time home buyers. So what keeps you motivated, and what gives you the inspiration to give the level of service that you give to your clients?
I think there's two parts to that question. So what keeps me motivated? I love puzzles, and every person is different. Their stories are different. What they need is different, and how you handle them and their goals is always different, right? So that's what keeps me motivated and excited to do the work. And then the level of service. I mean, I set high expectations, so I try and live up to the expectations that I set. So what I give, I would like to get back. And so that's kind of where I set the bar, if that makes sense.
It makes perfect sense. And it has to be so rewarding, though, when you get from application to closing table. And, as we know, it's not always smooth sailing. So it has to be very rewarding personally to be able to do that for people, because it's a big deal.
Yeah, I love the whole process. I mean, I'm a dork. I love the whole process. I know a lot of the process can be really scary for a lot of people, but to your point, I mean, we're all going together. It's a team effort, and we get to the finish line, and it's like, oh my gosh, thank you, we finally did it, and you get to watch these people sign, for sometimes their first home, maybe it's the second home, a vacation home. Either way, it's exciting. So yeah.
Well, and I've noticed that about you, that you're very proactive and involved throughout the process, and you sort of stay ahead of it. I guess the only way I can think of it is you're sort of clearing the path and, moving the debris out of the way just to try to make it a little smoother a process for your clients. So I'm sure they appreciate that.
Yeah, I try and anticipate needs as best I can.
You do a great job.
Thank you.
So getting back to the basics, if you have somebody that contacts you and says, Jillian, I'm sick of renting, I'm ready to be a homeowner, I have a real estate agent that I like and I trust, but she said that I really can't see any homes until I speak with a lender, and she gave me your card. And I don't know, I've never had a mortgage before, I've never bought a house before. How do you even start?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing I do is I have a conversation just like this. It's not transactional. It's very comfortable, in my opinion. And it's just a back and forth. It's, hey, what are your goals and expectations? How can I meet them? And how can I make you feel like you're participating? Because really, I'm kind of just the guide. They're doing all the work. They're getting me all the documents. They're providing all the funding, like all their down payment, things like that. I'm just the guide. So I kind of set that tone in the first phone call that we have. And then I just explain the process, the beginning of the process. And, to your point, having an agent that you know and trust first is great, but knowing what you can go shopping with is even better. It'll make your agent happy too. If you're like, hey, you know what? I know what I can go shopping with. Here is a pre-qual letter. Here's a pre-approval letter. Let's go look at some houses. So definitely first part is having a conversation, and second part is seeing how much you can go shopping with.
Absolutely. And especially in this market, it's so competitive. There's no time to take that pre-approval step as the second step. It really, I think there's a lot of misconception maybe that the first step is a real estate agent or looking at homes or deciding what you want, but the pre-approval is the first step. Now, can you talk to me a little bit about the difference between pre-approval and pre-qualification?
Yeah, I love those two. They're used interchangeably, of course, but they are different. So a pre-qualification letter is generated when we take a loan application, and we'll pull credit. We've been doing soft credit pulls, which is a huge benefit to our borrowers who might be a little leery of having their credit pulled and doing that hard credit pull. So we do a soft credit pull now initially, and we just get everything in front of us. We get all the numbers in front of us. We see what the lending picture kind of looks like. And then we say, okay, based on what you've told us, based on what's on your preliminary soft credit pull, this is what it looks like you can borrow. And this is what your monthly payment is going to be. How do you feel comfortable with this? That's a pre-qualification letter. That is what I send to your agent. That says, hey, yep, we've done a preliminary. It looks good. Here's your letter to go shopping. The pre-approval takes it a step further. So for me, when I do a pre-qualification letter, after I do that letter, I give the borrower homework. Some lenders might do it a little differently, but I like to set the ball in motion because sometimes what they tell me verbally and what I get in documentation, it might be a little different. And I want to know that up front. I don't want to know that after they've made an offer and got an offer accepted, and then I get that surprise. I want to be the one giving the surprises. I want to be the one to be like, okay, we're going to close early because you did everything you could do, right? So the pre-approval letter is we go through, we do the application, we pull credit, and I'm collecting all the documents, and then I'm submitting them to underwriting. And so what underwriting is going to do is they're going to go a step further. They're going to go through with a fine-tooth comb, and then they're going to give that pre-approval that's like, hey, this went through underwriting. Everything looks good. If you get a property and you put it under contract, we're entering the address and we're boogieing. I don't do a whole lot of pre-approvals just because I screen all my clients before, by collecting documents, but it is good. I do several of them, but I do a lot of pre-qualifications.
So it seems like that you take it a step further because, like you said, you don't like surprises, and in the real estate business, surprises are not a good thing until
No.
we can close early, or is that sort of thing. So in getting either a pre-approval or pre-qualification, besides knowing what they can be looking at for a price tag on homes, what other benefits does it have to the buyer?
I mean, they're going to know upfront what their closing costs are going to be. They're going to know what their monthly payment roundabout is going to be. And they can kind of plan. They can say, all right, if I borrow this much money, this is going to be my monthly payment. Am I comfortable with that? No. Okay, let's tailor it then. Let's move your borrowing amount down, or let's move it up. Whatever, your loan file allows and whatever you feel comfortable with.
Absolutely. And it definitely gives them the ability to give a stronger offer too. I mean, I'm not even sure in this market if an offer would even be submitted without that pre-qual. Well, I know when my husband sold his house, it was a couple of years ago. So the market was maybe even a little bit stronger now for the seller then than it is now for the seller. And he had many, like probably
Mm-hmm.
12 offers, and some were cash. He did not go with a cash offer.
Really?
Yeah, because he liked the letter that the buyer wrote about the
Mm-hmm.
house and all of that. He built it himself, so he kind of went on
Mm-hmm.
that. So they submitted these packages that included the pre-qualification, pre-approval letter. And one thing that we looked at was who the lender was.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
I think that goes nicely for you because you do have, and Leader One has such a great reputation. So once your buyer has found a property, um, what advice do you give to them as far as, okay, you've been pre-qualified or pre-approved? These are the things that you should do, or these are the things that you should not do in the process between getting your loan application completed and then the process of getting the deal to the closing table.
Yeah, let's start with the do's, because there's a lot of don'ts. But let's start with the do's. Do continue to save money as best that you can. Um, I mean, do let your agent know. Keep looking online. You know, do all those things. Um, Really, the don'ts are the ones that are the most. I mean, don't quit your job. Don't sign up for that TJ Maxx credit card to save 10%. You really don't buy a new car. Don't trade in your lease. Like things like that. Anything that's going to affect your credit and again, give us a surprise, don't do that. Because anytime you change anything in your credit profile, it could change everything. So those are the don't do any of those things, please.
A lot of those credit things are really sneaky though, because you're excited, you're buying a house,
Yeah.
you're going and you have even, just a few $100s, but you think, oh,
Hmm.
I could save $10 here.
Yeah.
Yes, sure. I've done it in a weak moment. I wasn't in
Oh,
the middle of
sure.
buying a house, or maybe you were looking at vehicles. You weren't going to buy until after, but they pulled your credit. So a
Hmm.
lot of them, even if you don't buy it, or even if you get that TJ Maxx or
Hmm.
Marshalls or whatever credit card and you're going to pay it right back, it's because you've changed that financial picture, that
Yep.
financial snapshot as far as
Yeah.
that goes.
Yeah.
I want to just touch on, and we're not going to get into specifics, but touch on a little bit about in this day and age, people with side hustles
Yeah.
and possibly, something they do on the side that they might consider under the table, and I'm air
Hmm.
quoting.
Yep.
How do you approach that? Is it just still depending on what they report as far as reportable income?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So there are a lot of people with side hustles. And my kind of spiel about that when they say, oh, when I ask, are there any other sources of income, that you want to list? And when they say, oh yeah, you know what, I'm a TikToker or I do things on Etsy, what have you. I say, okay, that's great. And we just kind of get into how long have you been doing it? The most important question is, are you telling Uncle Sam that you're making this money? Because if you're not telling him and you're not claiming it on your taxes, I can't use it.
Yeah, yeah, that's, obviously a
Yeah.
pretty
I mean, the same
expected
thing goes.
answer, but I know that it's something that everybody is
Yeah.
doing.
Oh,
Everybody's
yeah.
doing something on the side, and it's
I'm
something
a
that
big
they
fan.
may or may not do. So,
Yeah. I'm a big fan of it. But I mean, it goes hand in hand with, mattress money. Um, you put it in the bank. Put it in the bank. Like I know I just put it in the bank. I mean, you'd be shocked at how many people tell me they have thousands and thousands of dollars at their house. I'm like, please, please don't. Please put it in the bank.
right, right. Well, and the other thing too is it's not always bad things. Maybe somebody passed away and they inherited
Hmm.
some money, or somebody owed them money, and they
Hmm.
they paid them for it. All of that money in and out, significant amounts, that all has to be explained and have a paper
Hmm.
trail. Is that right?
Oh yeah, yeah. We have to document it. Absolutely. Big yes, absolutely.
Well, and the point of that is you all want to make sure that they haven't borrowed any money and they don't have any additional debt that maybe,
Correct.
they borrowed from Uncle Joe to help with the down payment.
Hmm.
So we've talked a lot about the pre-approval process but a pre-approval, even though you do more for the pre-approval, that is not the same as a loan application. It's the start, but am I right in thinking that?
So I think there's a lot of confusion because when I get an agent that asks me, have they made an application? Like after we're under contract, they'll typically what we do is when they go under contract, either myself or my loan partner Jamie will send what we call a made application email, and it says, "Good news, John Smith has made application for 123 Smith Street. We have ordered title with Trurugi and Baldacci. We have ordered appraisal." And then we ask a couple of questions about the property, if there's a buyer broker agreement, things like that. So if an agent doesn't get that in the first day or two, sometimes they'll reach out to me and they'll say, "Hey, have they made application?"
That actually makes perfect sense because you're going that step beyond the pre-qualification.
Yeah.
So you've got a head start on that. So that's great. So the information on the application is primarily your borrower. So that you're going to look at employment, credit, debt to income, that
Mm-hmm.
sort of thing. And then the other piece of that is the property.
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk to me a little bit about that, the type of properties that would be more
Yeah.
challenging to get financing for?
Oh. Um, so lenders, we're only as good as our agents' observations and, photos that they're posting, on their listings. So I'm sitting at my desk looking at these listings when they're giving the addresses. And there are things that do stand out, glaring things that stand out. I think the most difficult property to probably lend on, and I don't know if my colleagues will agree with me or not, but definitely single wide mobile homes. They're just they're just tough. They're tough, and there's more involved. It's a little more expensive, you know, upfront cost. There's a foundation inspection, and it's just those for me probably are the most hoops.
We always want to talk about the good stuff, but as you get into the process, you've made applications, so the file's now in underwriting. Maybe you're waiting for the appraisal to come back. Can you give us a few of the common hiccups that might happen during that process?
Sure, I'm sure I have a grab bag of things that have come up, and what's awesome about this job is that there's a new thing that comes up all the time, and nothing really surprises me anymore. Maybe for a VA loan, a water test. If the water test comes back not good, how are we going to remedy this for the VA buyer? Fortunately, I work with a lot of really good agents who everybody's goal is to get our buyer into the home.
What about
Oh,
appraisal issues? Do you find that
so yeah, I
comes
mean,
up?
yeah, in Maine, obviously, in the springtime, sometimes the basement is wet. That comes up a lot during this time period. So explaining that to underwriters, like, hey, it's okay. In Maine, we have wet basements. It's a thing.
That
So,
that actually goes back to I actually have an episode for putting together a dream team. And that really is so important because when a buyer has a kick butt agent,
mm-hmm,
a lender that knows what they're doing and is going to support them, and then a title company that is going to work with everybody, that's
mm-hmm,
the key. That's the key is really having that team. And you see it and I see it.
mm-hmm.
And I just can't stress enough that people really need to find the time to get the right team together. So, can you think of any inspirational stories, any particular client or home buyer that really touched your heart and just someone that or a situation you'll always remember?
I mean, honestly, there's something that I can pick out of almost every closing that I've done that I've learned something or been able to teach somebody something. I'm a big fan of that. I love to learn new things, and I love to try and teach people the process. They might go through it once or twice in their life, but to explain it in a way that they understand it and they feel like they're contributing, and that they're part of the team, right? We're not dragging them along. This is, like you said, all of us are going to the same place. We all want to get to the same place. Um, I mean, dang, that's a really hard question. That
I
is a really
stumped
hard
you.
question. It
No,
did stump me.
but getting back to that, I can see that about you because there have been situations that you've reached out to the title company and said, this is what they're saying is on title, explain it to me. How
Mhm.
how can I help you get it squared
Right.
away or remedy it? And that's really, really important because when you don't have that, somebody that's willing to ask for help or work as a team, then it does not always work out
Mhm.
well.
Yeah. I mean, luckily, I think, in our community, we have a lot of, and I mean, what my quote unquote, air quotes, competition or what have you. I really respect a lot of the people in our community. And I think because we're such tight knit in this industry, if you're not a team player, nobody's going to want to play ball with you. They're just not. They're going to see your name on a contract, or they're going to see something come through with your name on it. And for me, like, the biggest thing is if somebody sees my name come through on a prequal or anything like that, or in an email, I want them to be like, oh, awesome. I can't wait for this. I can't wait for this. Like, that is super, super important to me, because I think the same when I see a purchase and sale come through and it's the seller's agent is somebody I really like working with. I'm like, oh, awesome. I know if anything goes awry, we're good to go. We're going to get through it. I think that's really important.
It's an important part of it, and it's such an amazing point.
Yeah.
So I mean, my goal with this, and I think that we've really given some great information to somebody that is just overwhelmed and wondering where to start. So I really appreciate that. And do you have any parting words of advice to a buyer?
Um, Parting words of advice. It's tough out there right now.
It
It's
is.
super tough for everybody, whether you are in, the $100,000 to $200,000 mark, or even higher. It's tough for everybody. There's competition at every level. Don't get discouraged. Um, the market is shifting. Things are changing. People are still buying and selling houses. I mean, I talk to my lender friends in the community all the time. Like, we're doing all right. Everybody's doing okay. So stick with who you trust. If you don't trust somebody, find someone you trust, because this process can be super, super stressful. And back to the point, if you don't have a good team, you're gonna hate the whole process.
I think
Honestly,
that's really I
yeah.
think that's really a great takeaway because this is such an important transaction and at the end of the transaction when you're coming to that closing table and everybody is happy and
Hmm.
thrilled with how the whole process has gone, that's really rewarding, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's what I mean. Our jobs are stressful. Your job is stressful too, and so there's got to be something that keeps us coming back. And I think that's probably it. Working with our friends and seeing people reach their goals.
Absolutely. Well, I want to thank you so much for taking the time. I know you were coaching your daughter's softball
Oh
team
yeah, I'm
tonight,
tired.
so we appreciate that,
I appreciate you asking me.
of course.
So I'm the first lender that you're interviewing on your
You are
podcast, right?
absolutely the
So
first
I
lender.
want everybody to know that.
Oh, definitely, definitely. I always say when I talk to people, I usually have these great ideas at like 2 o'clock in the morning. And when I have an idea, somebody usually comes to mind. And
I
that's the
love it.
first person I reach out to. And, you have lots of awesome colleagues, but like I
I
said,
do.
I
I
just
really
kind of
do.
reach out to that first person and see what happens.
I appreciate that. I
Of course,
appreciate that.
Jill. I want to thank Jillian for hanging out at the round table with me today, and also to thank all of you for spending some time with us. If you want more information about Jillian or her contact information, head over to mainrealestateroundtable.com/show notes. This has been the Maine Real Estate Roundtable podcast with Bobbie Grenier. I hope you enjoyed today's discussion and will share this episode with a friend. And don't forget to leave a review and follow the podcast so you don't miss new episodes. The content of this podcast is for informational purposes and not intended as legal advice or representation by myself or any of the guests on the podcast. Thanks for listening, and until next time, keep it real.